The LPGA tour had Caitlin Clark play. And the LPGA, fans, well, the event was taken over by the ominous crowd that made sure to go get angry at everything Caitlin Clark did and everything Caitlin Clark does and was ever going to do, and made it that she was the problem and not the solution.
Imagine a world where a single athlete's presence can completely transform an entire sport overnight. That's not a fantasy. It's exactly what just happened in women's golf. But the real story isn't the record-breaking crowd or the electric energy. It's about a shocking divide that's been exposed, a secret war happening behind the scenes of women's sports. One league saw a superstar and rolled out the red carpet. The other saw the same superstar and seemingly build a wall. The result? A controversy that has everyone asking one burning question. Is one of these leagues secretly sabotaging its own future?
Because we know in the WNBA, when it came to Caitlin Clark, it was a lot of we don't need you and we were good before and we don't like your fans and this, that, and...
If you want the full, shocking story, stick around, because this is about more than just sports. It's about a revolution. And before we dive deeper, make sure you're part of the conversation. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss a single reveal. The LPGA, the premier organization for women's golf, made a decision that would send shockwaves to the entire athletic world. They invited Caitlin Clark, the basketball phenomenon, to step onto the green for a special event. This wasn't a random publicity stunt. It was a calculated move by a league that understands the modern media landscape. They looked at Clark's millions of social media followers, her record-breaking NCAA viewership, and her undeniable connection with a young, digital native audience, and saw a key to unlocking their own future.
The whole event, they saw how important it was that new fans were getting involved in golf, especially women's golf.
What happened next was nothing short of transformative. Crowds swarmed the event in numbers rarely seen in women's golf. Tournament organizers reported a surge in ticket sales the moment her participation was announced. The atmosphere wasn't just excited, it was historic. You could feel a different kind of energy buzzing through the course, a mix of anticipation and pure, unadulterated fandom. But these weren't just traditional golf fans in their polo shirts and quiet applause. They were young. They were energetic, many wearing basketball jerseys over golf shorts, and they were there for one reason: to witness the Caitlin Clark effect firsthand. The LPGA leadership didn't just tolerate this, they championed it. They actively promoted her involvement across all their platforms, featuring her in promotional materials alongside their own top stars. They saw in Clark not a gimmick, but a gateway, a magnetic force capable of pulling an entirely new generation into their sport. They understood a fundamental rule of modern entertainment. Growth doesn't come from guarding your turf, but from opening new doors. In a brilliant strategic move, they positioned their players to interact with her, creating viral moments of mentorship and camaraderie that played perfectly on social media. They weren't afraid of her star power overshadowing their own. They were confident that her light would illuminate the entire course, making every athlete on it more visible. And they were thrilled to hold that door open for her, knowing that every new fan who walked through it for Caitlin Clark might just stay for the incredible sport of golf itself.
LPGA, you can see when it came to them that they were happy that Caitlin Clark was there. They knew exactly the value that Caitlin Clark brought.
Meanwhile, in a stark and confusing contrast, the reaction from the WNBA, the very league where Caitlin Clark makes her living, has been frosty, to say the least. Instead of celebrating the unprecedented attention one of their own was bringing to women's basketball as a whole, a strange and palpable tension filled the air. From the moment she was drafted, the narrative surrounding her arrival felt less like a celebration and more like an interrogation. Reports surfaced of veteran players making subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, jabs in press conferences and on social media. Comments about privilege and having to work for what you get were layered with subtext. The narrative wasn't welcome to the club, let's grow the game together, but more, who does she think she is, thinking she can just walk in here? This immediate defensiveness baffled fans and analysts alike. Here was a player who had single-handedly lifted college basketball ratings to heights never seen before, bringing a level of mainstream media attention to the women's game that was previously unimaginable. So why would a league that has fought for decades for mainstream recognition, for bigger TV deals, and for more corporate sponsorships, seemingly push away its brightest new star?
They did everything they could to sabotage their own league. And yeah, it backfired. For me anyway, I think it's hard to argue that it didn't completely backfire for them, because Caitlin Clark is more popular than ever?
The question hangs heavy in the air. Is this simply a case of professional jealousy, a natural resentment from players who have grinded for years in relative obscurity? Or is it a symptom of a much deeper, more problematic culture within the league itself? A culture that is resistant to change and wary of outsiders, even when those outsiders arrive with gifts. The warm, strategic embrace of golf was being met with a cold, perplexing shoulder from basketball, and no one could quite figure out the logic behind a strategy that seemed to actively reject success. To understand the depth of this backlash, we have to listen to the voices coming from inside the WNBA and examine the history that fuels their perspective. The sentiment, echoed by some players and longtime fans, is that the blinding, singular spotlight on Caitlin Clark is disrespectful to the league's foundation. They feel it undermines the years of hard work, the struggle, and the legacy of the veterans who built the league from the ground up with minimal pay and even less fanfare. These players are legends who fought for every inch of respect, who played on dusty courts for empty stands, and who kept the dream of professional women's basketball alive when it was on the verge of collapsing multiple times. Their message has been, "We were good before she got here, and we'll be good after," a statement of resilience that also carries a sharp edge of exclusion. There's a palpable sense that her fan base, often younger and drawn from her record-breaking college superstardom, is an intrusion, that they aren't real basketball fans who understand the nuances of the professional game. These new fans, dubbed Caitlin Clark fans, are sometimes criticized for only caring about one player, for not knowing the league's history, and for bringing a different, sometimes more intense, energy to the arena. This creates an us versus them dynamic that is incredibly damaging to the league's growth. Instead of seeing Clark's millions of followers as a potential goldmine for the entire league, fans who could be converted into supporters of multiple teams and players, they are viewed as a temporary influx of outsiders. This mindset interprets her success not as a rising tide that lifts all boats, but as a tidal wave that threatens to capsize the established order and erase the contributions of those who came before. It's a protective instinct, born from decades of being overlooked, but one that risks protecting the league into irrelevance by alienating the very audience it needs to survive and thrive in the long term. This is where we see a fundamental philosophical split, a clash of ideologies that will define the future of women's sports. On one side, you have the LPGA operating with what psychologists call an abundance mindset. This is a belief that there is enough success, attention, and revenue for everyone, and that collaboration creates a larger pie for all. Stars like Nelly Korda didn't feel threatened. They felt energized. Korda publicly praised Clark, calling her a breath of fresh air and celebrating the new, youthful energy she brought to the tournament. They viewed her not as a threat to their own spotlight, but as a powerful ally in the larger battle for viewership against countless other entertainment options. Their strategy was inherently inclusive, adaptive, and focused squarely on exponential growth. They asked, how can we use this moment to introduce our sport to millions of new people? On the other side, the WNBA appears to be operating from a scarcity mindset. This is a fear that there's only so much fame, money, and attention go around, and that Clark's massive share somehow diminishes and devalues everyone else's. This perspective leads to a defensive, almost exclusive posture. It's the difference between a community that sees a surge in new visitors and immediately starts building a bigger table to welcome them all, and an exclusive club that puts a bouncer at the door to check credentials, worried that the new patrons might change the vibe of the place. One philosophy is built for expansion, understanding that in the attention economy, you must capture momentum when it arrives. The other is built for preservation, aiming to protect the sanctity and culture of what already exists. And in a fast-moving, brutally competitive sports landscape, preservation, while noble, is often the first step toward obsolescence as the world moves forward without you. The real tragedy of this resistance is the staggering opportunity cost for the WNBA. While the league hesitates and internal debates rage, it is missing its chance to capture a generational cultural moment. Imagine an alternate reality. The second Caitlin Clark was drafted, the entire league apparatus mobilizes to welcome her and her massive fan base. The WNBA social media channels launch a coordinated campaign titled A New Era, showcasing Clark alongside its established veterans, creating storylines of mentorship and exciting new rivalries. They partner with her on crossover promotions, introduce special ticket packages aimed at her college fans, and frame her arrival not as a disruption, but as a culmination of decades of hard work by every player who paved the way. The narrative becomes one of unity and explosive growth. Instead, the dominant story emerging from the league has been one of conflict, resentment, and divisive debates. This doesn't just turn away Clark's dedicated followers, who feel their hero is being mistreated. It also alienates neutral observers and casual sports fans who are drawn to stories of unity, success, and exciting competition. They see the drama and decide to tune out. The league is potentially leaving tens of millions of dollars on the table in lost ticket sales, merchandise, and most importantly, a transformative new TV deal that could have been negotiated from a position of unprecedented strength. Every headline about internal friction is a missed headline about a thrilling game-winning shot or a rising superstar. By failing to harness the Clark phenomenon, the WNBA isn't just standing still, it's actively moving backwards, creating a narrative of dysfunction while the rest of the sports world races forward to embrace its next big stars. The implications of this drama extend far beyond the hardwood courts of the WNBA or the manicured greens of the LPGA. This is a microcosm of a much larger battle being waged across the entire world of women's athletics. For too long, women's sports have operated in isolated silos, fiercely protecting their small pieces of the pie while fighting for scraps of media attention. The LPGA's collaboration with Caitlin Clark is a revolutionary blueprint that shatters this old model. It proves that the path to power and financial stability is not through isolation, but through unity and strategic cross-pollination. A fan of women's basketball can easily become a fan of women's golf, soccer, or tennis if the bridges are built for them. A follower of Caitlin Clark, drawn in by her incredible story, can become a follower of a dozen other incredible female athletes, from Sabrina Ionescu to Naomi Osaka, if the ecosystems are connected. The old model of fierce, isolated competition between different women's sports is dying because it simply doesn't work in a crowded digital marketplace. The new model, the one that will ultimately win, is about building a cohesive, powerful, and interconnected ecosystem where a win for one athlete or one league is strategically framed as a win for all. When one sport gains a new fan, that fan is now a potential convert for every other women's sport. The leagues that understand this, that see themselves as interconnected chapters in the same larger, more compelling story of women's athletic excellence, are the ones that will not just survive, but absolutely thrive in the coming decade. So where does this leave us? The paths of these two leagues have dramatically diverged, creating a real-time case study in sports management and cultural adaptation. The LPGA, by embracing change and transcendent star, has positioned itself as forward-thinking, agile, and genuinely fan-friendly. Its gamble wasn't just a one-off event. It was a statement of principle. It paid off in immediate exposure, yes, but more importantly, in a potential long-term fan base boost that could secure its financial and cultural relevance for the next decade. They saw a wave building and expertly jumped on their surfboard, riding it to shore with style and grace. In contrast, the WNBA, by appearing resistant and inward-looking, risks being perceived as stagnant, almost hostile to new fans, and dangerously out of touch with the mechanics of the modern sport economy, which runs on star power, viral moments, and cross-platform engagement. This isn't just about sports purists versus new fans. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of how to build a brand in the 21st century. The critical, multi-million-dollar question now is whether the WNBA can actually course correct. Can an organization, seemingly steeped in a specific culture, pivot so dramatically? It would require more than just a few press releases welcoming Clark. It would demand a top-to-bottom strategic shift, a conscious and public effort to reframe the entire narrative. Imagine the powerful message the league could send if its commissioner sat down for a long-form interview, not to defend the veterans, but to explicitly state, Caitlin Clark is not a threat to our history. She is a living, breathing result of it. Her success is our success, and we are committed to ensuring everyone our fans feels at home in our league. It would require veteran players, the ones who have shouldered the burden for years, to be leveraged not as critics, but as mentors and gateways to the league's rich history for these new eyes. The potential for storytelling is immense, the seasoned warrior teaching the prodigy, the old guard passing the torch. But this only works if the narrative is one of unity, not conflict. Has the initial resistance already done permanent damage? The answer is complex. For a segment of Clark's most dedicated followers, the impression may already be set in stone that the WNBA is an unwelcoming place for their hero. Every side eye in a press conference, every cryptic tweet from a player solidifies that perception. The league is fighting an internal public relations battle while trying to win an external commercial war. However, the world of sports is also famously forgiving when winning and excitement are involved. If Clark starts hitting game-winning shots, if she leads her team on a deep playoff run, and if the league can successfully package that excitement and market to her fans, the initial friction could be remembered as a mere bump in the road. The danger is that the league continues to be its own worst enemy, allowing internal tension to overshadow the on-court product. The damage isn't necessarily permanent, but the window to repair it is closing faster than they might think. Every day they spend debating is a day another league, like the LPGA, solidifies its bond with a new generation. Or is there still time to change the narrative? Absolutely, but it requires a level of humility and strategic brilliance we have yet to see from the league's leadership, embracing Caitlin Clark not as a problem, but as the most valuable solution they've ever been handed, means fundamentally understanding that she is a key to unlocking audiences that have been completely inaccessible for 30 years. It means creating marketing campaigns that are built around her appeal, not in spite of it. It means designing social media content that highlights her incredible passes and deep three-pointers alongside the powerful stories of other stars, showing that this isn't a one-woman show, but the most talented ensemble in women's sports history. It means arena experiences that welcome her young fans with open arms, making them feel like they are witnessing the beginning of a new dynasty, not intruding on a private party. The future of the league may very well depend on the answer to this single dilemma. We are at a crossroads, not just for the WNBA, but for the entire model of women's team sports. The choices made in the next 12 to 24 months will be studied in business schools and sports management programs for decades to come. Will they be studied as an example of a league that stubbornly clung to the past and faded into obscurity? Or will they be taught as the ultimate comeback story, a tale of a legacy league that recognized a paradigm shift, adapted with courage, and soared to heights previously thought impossible? The ball is now, unequivocally, in the WNBA's court. The play they call will determine their championship, not just a trophy, but the championship for the hearts, minds, and wallets of the next era of sports fans. This is more than a season. It's a reckoning, and what happens next will either be their greatest triumph or their most tragic missed opportunity. What do you think they should do? Is it too late for a turnaround? Or does the WNBA still hold all the cards to make this their greatest era ever? Let us know your honest take in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this deep dive into the high-stakes world of sports strategy has you thinking, share this video with a friend and spark the debate. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thanks for watching.